I remember when we first called the police last night to tell them we hadn't seen our daughter in a few hours. I sobbed over the phone next to my husband, Jack, and begged them to do something. She was only 6 years old. Being missing for only a few hours meant something must have been wrong. It was a small town. We all knew each other and lived in peace for the most part. How could something be wrong? They sent a few officers out, and upon coming to our home, realizing the situation in full, they began to worry too. Our property was large. We lived in a small town, Jack and me. We had moved here when I got pregnant with Emmy. We wanted to start life anew and life with a white picket fence in front of our home. So we moved to a small, middle-of-nowhere town and got a big house right in front of the woods. Maybe some people would be displeased by the thought of that simple lifestyle. I'll admit, I used to be, or afraid of what lurks within the vast woods behind our home, but I never feared them. We would often take walks through the woods as a family. They were beautiful. Emmy was so drawn to adventuring in them, so she was very familiar with them. She could have run out there, and any number of things could have happened to her. We started with search parties through the woods, but nothing came up. We searched through every acre of land that we could, but nothing turned up, not one thing. Not a footprint, not an article of clothing, and luckily not a drip of blood. We wouldn't find her out in the woods, where everyone thought she would be found. Next, we had to start to cope with the fact that she could have been taken. We were a close town. I knew all of my neighbors, and they all knew me. Everyone was kind. I always felt safe here. I was sure that nobody in this town could have taken my Emmy from me. So, if somebody had taken her, she must have been long gone. After weeks and weeks of searching to no avail, the case grew cold. The officers promised that they would keep looking, but there wasn't much hope in their voices. They tried to hide that from Jack and me, but I wasn't stupid, and he wasn't either. They had given up hope. Unless something turned up, they couldn't keep on looking for her in a town that we knew she wasn't in. I remembered vividly walking through town after that and seeing all of the missing posters slowly rot and decay on their telephone poles and bulletin boards and storefronts. Nothing bad ever happened in our quaint little town, so no matter how much time passed, nobody would forget about the tragedy our family had suffered. Flyers would fly off in the wind, and I'd watch them go by, and townsfolk would often come up to me and comfort me and give me words of encouragement. But after the first few weeks, having everyone there for you, you're still in shock. It isn't until the initial phase passes and you are left alone with what you are facing that you truly face it. The shock wears off, and you come to terms with your reality. That was 10 years ago. My husband still sits by the phone sometimes, but he knows there will never be a call. He loved our little Emmy so much. She was Daddy's little girl. She was beautiful and perfect in every way. Her baby blue eyes always stared into his so longingly. They just loved each other so much. I know that he lays by the phone some nights and waits to hear her voice again, knowing he never will. Jack and I only had each other now, just like before. I sat down there with him one night. It was her birthday. He couldn't sleep after we had celebrated with a cake for her, as we do every year, and watched some old home movies. She would have been 16 today, turning into a woman and caring about the boys in school and who would ask her to prom. I know he just wanted to see what she would have been, and it killed him to not know. We sat up by the phone, watching one of her favorite Disney movies that we all saw together right before she went missing. As the animation flew across the screen, and we were entranced, thinking about her, a loud ring interrupted it. It could have been anyone, but Jack frantically grabbed the phone on the first ring and picked it up. I paused the movie and watched carefully, knowing that I would have to watch the hope drain from my love's eyes once again. It hurt me more every time I saw it happen. Tears started to fall from his eyes, but as I went to comfort him, I noticed that they were tears of joy. No, it was impossible. He hung the phone up after saying thank you, and dropped it to the floor, trembling. They found her, he said to me, tearfully. I knew that they would. My body froze. Maybe it was shock that came over me, but I knew that she was dead. She had been dead for 10 years. I accepted that, and Jack never did. But I knew that she was dead. I froze and tears came to my eyes as Jack ran up out of the chair to grab his keys. He grabbed me and led me into his car, and we raced to the station. Upon entering it, we saw her with the same officer who had worked the case all those years ago. Jack ran up to the beautiful, blonde girl quickly, embracing her in his arms and leaving me behind to stand there, paralyzed. I was in disbelief, convinced what I was seeing could not be real. I wondered if she remembered me, if she remembered who I was. After witnessing the tearful hug, I saw her pull out of it. She turned to look at me, and the moment I saw those beautiful baby blue eyes, I knew it was my daughter. There was no doubt at all. Tears flowed down her face as she walked up to me, slowly. Did she remember? "Mom," she said, her voice breaking and shaky. I stared at this beautiful girl in front of me, dumbfounded, for a moment before responding. I felt as if my voice could not escape from me. "Baby," I choked out to her. Without responding, she collapsed in my arms, sobbing. I stood there frozen for a moment, unsure of how to react to this shocking discovery, but after a moment wrapped my arms around her, clutching her like any loving, grieving mother would do to her missing child newly found. A tear came to my eye, silently, and raced down my cheek as I exhaled a breath of relief. I thought she was dead. No, I knew she was dead. How was she not? It had been 10 years. How did she survive? I found out later she had amnesia. She barely remembered anything from when she went missing because of a blow to her head. They didn't know who caused it. Thank God they didn't. Thank God I hit her in just the right place. I sat there next to Emmy, who barely even knew her name. She didn't remember who her parents were until she saw us again. That meant she couldn't have remembered when I took her out into the woods that night and struck her across the back of the head with my Jack's old metal bat from his baseball days, from when we could be together and live our lives how we wanted without her getting in the way and making us uproot everything, when all we had was each other and all we loved was each other. She's upstairs in her old bedroom now. We just got home last night. The neighbors have sent gifts and flowers and food. They've all been so wonderful and supportive. Jack is up there, bringing her breakfast in bed and eating with her, with much more love for her now than he ever had before. Maybe it's because he understands what it was like to lose her. She means even more to him now than ever. I'm growing more paranoid. I'm afraid that her memory will come back. It hasn't yet, but I'm petrified that second she sees the woods, my cover will be blown. It's not like I can kill her again. That would look too suspicious, wouldn't it? I made sure everything would work out. I took her to the woods that night, hit her across the head, and drove so far out of town that she could never get back. I threw her body in the lake. I watched as she floated away lifelessly. I know that she drowned, but here she is, back again. Was she sent to punish me? Jack came down the stairs to tell me that she wanted to see me. His smile is larger than ever now that she's home again. He hasn't smiled at me like that since the day we got married, or the day I gave birth to Emmy. It's all he wanted in the world, and he has it now. I'm nothing, and she is everything. If she was sent here to punish me, or if she was aware of what I had done and hell-bent on revenge, he wouldn't even care. I'm opening the door to her room now, to see her sitting upright in her bed, staring at me with a smile painted on her face. I take a deep breath in preparation for whatever is to come, facing the truth, or having to hide behind a mask for the rest of my days until I can figure out what to do with her. If I can't figure out anything, then I'll just live in constant fear of her memory coming back and knowing what happened on that night when I killed her. I was sent to investigate a missing child. What I found still haunts me. I took early retirement 2 months ago. Officially, it was voluntary. But if you read between the lines, the sudden transfer, the psych evaluation, the months of mandatory leave, you'd see the truth. No one really knows what happened in Barley Hill. Not the chief superintendent, not the department shrink, not even my wife, who thinks it was just burnout. But it wasn't burnout. It was what I saw, what I heard in that cellar. Let me start from the beginning. Barley Hill was barely a dot on the map, Northumberland countryside. 2 rows of stone cottages, 1 pub, a post office, and fields stretching so far you could fall off the world. I was stationed nearby in Hexham when the call came through. A missing girl. Her name was Abigail Shaw, 12 years old. Disappeared on a Tuesday afternoon, somewhere between school and home. She usually walked back with her friend Lucy, but that day she told Lucy she was taking a shortcut through the woods. There was no shortcut, just thick forest and farmland for miles. I met her parents that night. They were good people, salt-of-the-earth types. Mr. Shaw's hands trembled so badly he spilled his tea. Mrs. Shaw kept looking at the clock, like she could rewind it by sheer will. The local constable, Pritchard, was already in over his head. No CCTV. No signs of a struggle. No strangers reported. By morning, I'd brought in dogs, drones, and backup. We swept every inch of woodland for 3 days straight. Nothing. Not a single footprint. Not a scrap of clothing. It was like she'd evaporated. Then, on the 4th day, a dog walker found something. Near an abandoned farmstead 2 miles out, Greaves Orchard. The walker's dog went wild near a collapsed barn, digging furiously. That's where we found the ribbon. Pink satin. Tiny silver bell. Abigail's mother identified it instantly. The barn was half-rotted and unstable, but beneath it we found a trapdoor, sealed shut with rusted iron bolts. And this is where things stopped making sense. The floor above the trapdoor hadn't collapsed. The dog couldn't have smelled anything through solid oak beams and packed earth. But somehow, it led us there like it had been called. We broke the lock. The air that rose up smelled of old stone and wet iron. We descended. The cellar below was far too large. It had been carved directly into the bedrock. Hand tools, from the looks of it. Pritchard told me the farmhouse had no records of underground storage. No maps. No local gossip. Nothing. But there it was, 15 feet underground. Stone shelves. Iron hooks. Rusted restraints bolted to the wall. We found one small shoe behind a broken crate. And 6 feet up on the stone wall, freshly scrawled in chalk. Alive. That word haunted me. Forensics confirmed the shoe and the ribbon belonged to Abigail. Her fingerprints were on them, but no DNA. No sign of anyone else. We interviewed the entire village twice. I even walked the woods alone most nights, flashlight in one hand, recorder in the other. That's when the strange thing started. My phone would turn on by itself in the middle of the night, recording voice memos I didn't make. Just static and faint whispers. I couldn't make them out at first. Then the voice came. 3 nights in a row. Something knocked on my guest house door. Always at 2:11 a.m. Each time I opened the door, nothing. On the 3rd night, I set up a camera in the hallway. Reviewed the footage the next morning. At 2:11 a.m., the camera jolted. Then my own voice whispered, "She's in the orchard." Except I never said that. I didn't tell anyone. I knew if I did, I'd be pulled from the case. So I returned to Greaves Orchard. In daylight this time. Walked the barn, the field, the trees. Found nothing. But the feeling, that sick pressure behind my eyes, never left. That night I got a call. An old woman named Mags Willoughby. She lived alone near the edge of the village, closest to the orchard. She'd seen something. "I saw a girl," she told me, "running across the field." "Did you recognize her?" I asked. She looked like the Shaw girl, but she wasn't right. "What do you mean?" She was barefoot, covered in mud, but her clothes weren't torn, and her face. Mags hesitated. She wasn't scared. She looked like she was sleepwalking. "Where did she go?" "Toward the barn." I stayed out there until dawn. Nothing. A week passed. The official search was scaled back. The press left. But I didn't. I couldn't. The case infected me. I barely slept. My wife said I talked in my sleep. Something about chalk and ribbons. Then one night, with storm rolling over the moors, I went back to the barn. One last time. The trees were groaning in the wind. The barn creaked like it might fall in on itself. I went down into the cellar, torch in one hand, recorder in the other. Everything was just as we'd left it, except the word alive was gone, scrubbed clean. In its place, a new word, written in chalk, shakier this time, colder. Then I heard it. A giggle. Soft. Delicate. I spun with the torch and caught her in the beam. A girl. Pale. Barefoot. Mud up to her knees. Wearing a nightgown. Abigail. I whispered. She just stared at me. Smiling. I stepped forward, hand out. She stepped backward into the shadows and vanished. I rushed to where she'd been. Nothing. Just cold stone. I don't know how long I stood there, my torch shaking. Eventually I left. Didn't sleep that night. Didn't go back the next day. Then came the call. They'd found her. 3 days later, wandering by the roadside near Hayden Bridge. She was disoriented, dehydrated, but otherwise unharmed. Her clothes were clean. No bruises. No trauma. The doctors said she'd been fed recently. But she didn't remember anything. She just kept saying the same thing. The man in the cellar was nice. They called it a coping mechanism, a way to explain her time away. But I knew better. I asked to see her. Just once. Off the record. I sat across from her in the hospital. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. Calm, like none of it had happened. Abigail, I asked, was the man in the cellar old or young? She tilted her head. He didn't have a face, she said. They closed the case. Celebrated a miracle. The girl who came back. But I know what I saw. And I know what I heard. Because the night after she was found, I listened to one of the voice memos on my phone. It was my voice again. Muted. Repeating. She's not the same. She's not the same. She's not the same. Then silence. Then a child's voice, soft, whispering like it was right beside the microphone. Neither are you. I'm a missing persons investigator. This case made me quit. Just a little information for you all before I tell my story. My job is to find missing people. Families and police stations usually call me, and others like myself, to find said people. Over the course of my career, I've found quite a few people, but some I've never been able to find. Despite that, I took pride in my job because I could find and help people. But after this case, I haven't been the same. I will warn those with weak stomachs that what I am about to say isn't suited for some. A few years back I was contacted by a family I'm friends with. They were searching for their missing daughter and her 2 friends. They had gone on a cross-country road trip. A week into their road trip, all contact between them and their families was cut off. The families went to the local police, but there wasn't much they could do, so they turned to me. The case was somewhat personal, so to say I was impatient to find them was an understatement. I first had the families pull up their messages between them and their children. I had to cover every base, from them wanting to run away from home to someone wanting to harm them. I got the license plate to the car they took and ran it through multiple databases to find it in any CCTVs along the roads they took. I got a ping that the car was seen at a gas station a few states over. The gas station was on a long, desolate road. The road itself wasn't in the best condition, and the gas station didn't look all that good. Upon showing the clerk at the gas station their pictures, he confirmed that he had seen him. They looked fine at the time and were headed west. I thanked him and followed the road westwards. While driving down the road, my tire went out and I crashed into the side railings. Thankfully, I didn't sustain any injuries, but I was now stranded in the middle of nowhere. I decided to survey the area and noticed that the trees looked damaged. The sun was setting, so I grabbed my flashlight and peeked over the edge of the railings. Perhaps the car went off into the gully. I placed the flashlight in my chest pocket and climbed down the hill. At the bottom of the hill lay a wrecked car. The car looked so heavily damaged that they shouldn't have been able to get out, but somehow there was no one inside, though dried and nearly concealed by foliage. There were some blood splotches. I went to my radio to call for some police officers and an ambulance, but to my dismay, all I got was static. A twig snapped behind me, and before I had the chance to turn around, something hard connected with my head, and I found my vision go dark and my mind blank. I woke up in near-pitch darkness, except for the light bulb that hung above me. My head throbbed painfully. What the hell happened? Assessing my condition, I was strapped to a chair with my legs and arms firmly bound. Based on my surroundings, I assumed I was in a basement. It smelled of rot and mold, and I struggled to not throw up. I could hear rats scurrying around just out of my line of sight. A door opened, and in walked a man who was so mutated, it was hard to say he was even human. "Hey, who the hell are you?" I shouted. He came closer. and I could see a horrible grin plastered on his face. He held a knife in one hand. "You're the one who took those 3 girls, weren't you? What did you do to them?" I asked. He didn't respond, but he had a displeased look on his face. Before I knew it, he stabbed the knife into my hand. My body jolted from the pain, and I wanted to scream out in agony, but I held it in. "You sick bastard. You probably get off to this, huh? Well, hate to break it to you, but it'll take more than that to make me scream," I retorted through heavy breaths. He tilted his head and began twisting the knife in my hand. The pain was unbearable, but I refused to give him what he wanted. I couldn't help the tears that built up in my eyes and quickly fell. He was still dissatisfied, so he pulled the knife from my hand. He placed it over my pinky, lining it up. I struggled against my binds as I knew what he was about to do. However, before I could protest, he slammed the knife down and severed my pinky from my hand. I couldn't hold my screams any longer. "Go to hell, you!" I screamed in agony. I heard his sick laugh echo throughout the basement. "Got you. I'll be taking this." Just like that, he picked up my finger and left me in the basement to suffer alone in agony. The pain clouded my brain and made it hard to think straight. Blood still poured from my hand, coating the chair arm before dripping to the floor. After what felt like hours, I passed out from the pain and blood loss. I woke up once more and saw that my hand was bandaged with a dirty cloth. I looked up to see a horrific sight. In front of me sat a table with human body parts laid on it. The body parts were so mutilated you almost couldn't tell it belonged to a person. I gagged at the sight. "He's a cannibal." In his hands were a bowl and spoon. He was stirring the spoon in the bowl and turned towards me. Upon seeing I was awakened, he came over to me. The smell was putrid, and I could feel my stomach turning at the sight of the contents of the bowl. I turned away, but he grabbed my face and forced my mouth open. He shoved the spoon in my mouth. It was horrible, and tears filled my eyes. I spit the contents back out and vomited. He looked unhappy that I didn't eat it. He set the bowl down and walked over to a wall which held multiple tools. He grabbed some pliers and came back over to me. "What are you going to do?" I asked, breathless. He didn't answer as he pulled off 3 of my fingernails. Tears fell from my eyes, and I screamed. His smile widened, and he laughed his creepy, sick laugh. He didn't mind me and simply grabbed my fingernails, leaving me alone once more. Blood dripped from my fingertips. I hung my head low from exhaustion. Just how long have I been here? Out of sheer desperation, I moved my injured hand, and much to my surprise, it was easier to move than my other hand, perhaps due to the blood that coated it. I twisted and turned my hand slowly, releasing it from its bindings a little at a time. My hand and arm ached from the tight pull of the bindings, but after what felt like forever, my hand was free. I panted from the pain and held my hand close to my chest to relieve some of the pain. I then released my other hand and feet from the bindings. I rushed for the door, but it was locked. I searched around the basement, the dim light of the bulb being my only salvation. In one of the corners, I found a flashlight in a box. I flipped it on and was able to see considerably better. The basement floor was covered in old blood stains and rotten pieces of flesh, presumably human flesh. I dry heaved and focused on finding a weapon I could use. Unfortunately, whenever he left, he took his tools he had on the wall with him. I searched around and miraculously found a crowbar he left behind. I unscrewed the light bulb from its socket and fell into total darkness, except for the light from the flashlight. I hid in a concealed area behind the door and waited for him to come back. After a while, I heard heavy footsteps and readied myself in the encompassing darkness. The metal door screeched open, and he stepped into the basement. Perhaps due to the unexpected darkness in the once poorly lit basement, he paused. I used that to my advantage and swung the crowbar as hard as I could against the back of his head. He grunted and fell over. I ran up the stairs, tripping over some uneven boards, and came out into an old, run-down, and decrepit house. I rushed through the house and barged through the front door. I ran into the chilly night air. I could hear sounds from within the house, and dread filled me. How was he up already? I ran blindly through the woods, tripping over tree roots and slipping on leaves covered in dew. I stepped on something cold and metallic, and before I had time to react, it clamped down on my leg. The bear trap broke my leg in several places, and I screamed as I fell over, blood pouring from my leg. I could hear movement in the woods from the direction I had come from. I knew it was him. I pried the trap open and thankfully got my leg out. My leg was messed up beyond belief. It was mangled and I could barely stand on it. The noise got closer, so I forced myself to run. This, however, didn't work, and he appeared right behind me and tackled me down. He had an ice pick and was trying to stab me with it. I struggled with him and managed to knock it out of his hands. I kneed him in the gut, which released his hold on me, and I scrambled for the ice pick. He grabbed my mangled leg and dragged me back to him. I yelled in pain as he flipped me over and began strangling me. I couldn't breathe and felt my consciousness slipping as I blindly grabbed for the ice pick. I felt a cool metal and saw a ray of hope. I grabbed it in my hand and with one swift movement stabbed it into his neck. I pulled it out as his body recoiled. His blood squirted out onto me as I breathed in once more. He fell back onto the ground, making a gurgling noise. I struggled up and continued limping onwards. I soon found a dirt road which led me to the highway. I collapsed on the side of the highway just as a car spotted me and pulled over. The person rushed to me as I succumbed to the darkness. I don't know much of what happened after that, but I woke up in a hospital a few days later. I was told that I was probably held in that basement for about 4 to 5 days. I was told I'd gotten lucky, but I didn't really feel like I had. Everything that happened broke me. How could I tell those families what had really happened to their children? For months after everything happened, I still couldn't stand the smell or sight of meat. In the end, I wasn't able to tell them. A police officer who arrived at the scene had to. This case really fucked me up mentally and physically. I walked with a limp and relied on a cane. Mentally, I was even more screwed up. I could longer stand being near sharp objects, being in dark places, and I could no longer perform my job properly. I quit once I got well enough to go out and about. I'd like to say that somehow I'll get over this, but even after 4 years, I haven't mentally recovered from it. I'm not sure why I decided to share this. Maybe I just needed to let it out. But stay safe nonetheless, everyone.